Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I am featuring new Spellbinders dies. They sent me some really beautiful dies and I want to share them with you all so that you can see how to put them together and how to use them on cards. So let me share the dies that they sent and what they look like when they're cut out. These are Spellbinders Hibiscus Etched dies from Susan's Tropical Getaway. You can see that there's a number on each of the dies. That number tells you how many times to cut it out to create one flower. So that first triple petal, you'll cut out one time. This dual petal, you'll also cut out one time. And for the leaves, it's two leaves together in one die. You'll need to cut this out twice to create the hibiscus flower. This is the flower center and you only need to cut that out once. In addition to the dies that Spellbinders sent me, I also purchased some as well. I got these Nestabilities dies in the label format. It's number 17, and this stamp set that is an Essentials sentiment stamp set. I also picked up another sampler pack of their cardstock because I absolutely love the colors that are in this assorted pack. I'm going to share 3 ways to use the hibiscus dies, and the first way is to cut them all out of white cardstock and then ink blend on top to create the details of the petals. So I have both layers of petals, the 2 petal and then the 3 petal layer, and I'm using Distress Oxide ink. I'm using Wild Honey for my first part of my layer on the flower there, and then I'm going to use some squeezed lemonade on the flower center, and I'm going to color both sides of the flower center because I believe that it is meant to be rolled to create a dimensional flower center. I end up kind of flattening it out to create my card because I want to be able to put it in an envelope, but I want to be able to use both sides of that, and then I'm going to add a little bit of the wild honey at the edge. I want all of these to have the look of dimension and actual realistic petals. When you put them together, these flowers are very realistic. So I'm adding some festive berries on the tips or edges of these petals, again to add that kind of gradient of color that you see on actual flowers. They're not always just one color. You can see multiple colors in each of the petals, and I wanted to achieve that effect. For the leaves, I did die cut them twice out of the white cardstock like was indicated on the die, and I am starting with some mowed lawn. I was first just using the ink that was on the foam pad that was on my ink tool, and I decided I needed more color, so I grabbed out the ink pad to actually ink them up. I want to put enough color on there that whatever my second color is, it kind of blends into the first one. So I'm using Rustic Wilderness here on the edges and at the bottom where the stem is of these leaves, and I'll be able to go over it with a little bit of mowed lawn to kind of make those two colors blend together a little bit, but still be able to see the darker color on the edge. It adds just a little hint of actual look to those leaves, especially when you put them all together with the petals, but you'll see that when we put them all together. So again, I am just going to do the same exact thing for all of the leaves. Now for the sentiment, I'm going to use that Essential stamp set, and I've put the die in my mini Misty. I do this a lot so that I can see exactly where I want to stamp the sentiment. This time I'm going to use some anti-static powder and sweep the excess away, and then ink up the stamp with some embossing ink and pour some fine detail gold embossing powder on top, and then just heat set that. I love this tiny little font. It's just so perfect for a big juicy flower that I feel like a smaller kind of straight font is perfect. So for this flower, I decided to use some foam tape behind all of the leaves and the petals. So each layer is popped up off that Nestabilities label that we die cut out for the sentiment background there. And that's just one way to put this all together. For the flower center, I did use some Ultra Bond liquid glue. It's a nice strong liquid glue. You can see I did kind of roll up those little flower centers and then just glue them to the flower. I'm going to use some Tonic Studios Nouveau Crystal Glaze just to add some dew or raindrops to the flower and the leaves, and then all around that part of the card as well, just for some shine and a little bit of embellishment on this card. Super, super simple to put these together, but they have such a realistic look to them, and I love hibiscus flowers. They make me think of Hawaii. For the second card, I'm going to die cut them all out of a Copic friendly cardstock. I'm using the Heffy Doodle cardstock for this one, and then I'm going to use the Artix markers. I've shown these before. I love how juicy they are. So for something like this is the perfect type of marker to use. If you don't have a lot of Copics, they are a really great buy because they're affordable. So I am just going to cover the entire leaf with one light green, and then I'm going to go over the center and kind of create some veins going out from that center to create the darker color of the green that's inside the leaf. And once that's done, I am going to go back over the whole leaf with the lighter color again. That's just to blend it out and to make a more smooth look to it. But those little lines that are so easy to draw, it's nothing very artistic, but it does help to make the leaf a little bit more realistic looking, and the lighter color blends out those lines to soften them a little bit so that they don't look so harsh. But you can see here that it does add a touch of realism to the leaf. Without it, it would just be a plain die cut. I'm going to do the same type of thing with the flower center with some yellow and then little hints of orange at the tips. I'm going to use basically a slightly darker color just for the stamen at the end there. For the petals, I'm going to do some purple this time. So like I said, these markers are very juicy, so I basically put down the lightest color of purple all over the petals. You don't have to color the back. I didn't. But you can if you want to. If you really want to curl the petals and create that extra dimension, you can color the back as well. I'm going to put a darker color starting at the flower center and then going slightly out. And because I got a little bit on the side of one petal, I am going to put a little bit on the tips of the petals and then a little bit on some of the sides as well. And I will blend this all out pretty significantly so that it doesn't look so harsh. I'm going to take kind of my medium purple and I'm going to just scrub away at the harsh lines. This is just to smooth out that harsh line. So I'm not doing really any blending here. I'm just really scrubbing on top of that harsh line to create a smoother line there. And then once all of that has been kind of eased up a little bit where it is not so harsh on any of those spots, then I go back in with the lightest color again, and that's really where everything starts to blend together. So you can see that these are so super just dripping with ink that they kind of do a lot of the work for you, which is what, when you use alcohol inks in the bottles, that's what I love, that they do all of the blending together on their own. These markers have so much ink in them that they really do a lot of that on their own, and you just have to put some color down. So you can see here, once they start drying back, they really do look super realistic, these petals. I'm going to use some black ink to stamp my second sentiment, which says hello friend, and then I did cut that panel down to 4 by 5.5 so that I could mat it on some purple cardstock from the Spellbinders cardstock sampler pack. So here's my flower center. You can see I kind of rolled it up a little bit, and this time I'm going to put the flower together on the side of the card. I'm going to use some liquid glue. I'm using the Ultra Bond pen again so I can get a small dot, but it's very strong adhesive. So I'm going to put the flower center down on the triple petal of the flower, and then once that's just about dry, I'm going to hear the double petal on top. So I'm building this from the bottom up, and I'm hiding kind of the edge of the flower center underneath the top petals. I'm going to use one little piece of foam tape to adhere this flower down to the card, and I just wanted to make sure I had enough room there for all the leaves underneath. The reason that I put a small piece of foam tape is because I have 4 leaves to try and fit underneath. So I didn't want a big piece of foam tape getting in the way. And then I just used some liquid glue on the bottom side of the stem of those leaves and just tuck them underneath, and then just let them alone, and that Ultra Bond will adhere down to your card. So that liquid glue gives you enough time to move things around, but will really stick once it's stuck. And you can see I did curl the leaves and the petals and the flower centers to add all of that dimension, because that is what helps to make the flower look even more realistic, is when you roll them a little bit to create that extra dimension. For the last card, I am going to use some colored pencils. So one easy way to really get just some extra details with these flowers is to use colored pencils on colorful cardstock, so that you're not worried about covering up the entire cardstock with pencil or ink or whatever you're using. You can start with a colorful cardstock base. This actually works with inks as well. You can use the pink cardstock and then just ink the edges or ink little bits in the center even with different colors or darker colors of ink. So I'm going to do that exact technique with pencils. And I like pencils on these petals and leaves because they really add lots of fine detail. I'm not completely covering the cardstock. I'm just adding those lines, which create kind of that look of an actual petal. I'm going to cut out my Nestabilities label again, and this time I'm using 3 long pieces of foam tape to pop up that sentiment label on top of some pink cardstock that came in the Spellbinders Assorted pack. And this time I'm going to start adhering the flower right down to the card. So really you can do it either way, depending on whether or not you want to pop it up or have everything glued down and then curl or your leaves and flowers, or do everything on the side first and then adhere it to the card. It's really simple though. You have your 3 petals on the bottom, the 2 petals layer on top, and then you can put your leaves wherever you want. This one I kind of had the large leaf at the bottom. I liked the other ones where it was sort of off to the side there, but you can make your hibiscus look however you want. And for this one I did cut the flower center into 3 pieces and then just layered it on top of each other. This one I felt like with all the other dimension from the foam tape, you didn't need a lot on the flower. I love Spellbinders' beautiful and detailed designs. If you'd like to see some of their Christmas supplies in action, I'm going to link to a video I filmed over here. As always, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. So let me share you. I'm going to share you. That's weird. Out. With what? So close. That was not very long at all.